Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here at Loyola at this conference on Ayurveda, yoga, and health. It's such an important time, such an important topic, and I'm really glad to see that Loyola is at the forefront of educating the public, educating other universities and the world about this key knowledge. I'd like to begin by quoting a well-known Ayurvedic scholar, Dr. Sanjay Gupta of CNN News, who recently talked about practical immortality. And he said that studies suggest that our DNA counts for only about 30% of how long we live. The rest is up to us. Thanks to cutting-edge scientific research and incredible advances, practical immortality may now be within our grasp. So this is Dr. Sanjay Gupta in 2017, and as we've just heard, more than 5,000 years ago, Charak, in the key textbook of Ayurveda, began the primary textbook of Ayurveda with the aphorism, "Thus begins the quest for longevity." The entire purpose of Ayurveda and the entire purpose, I would submit, of the health-oriented literature of Veda and yoga is about this one purpose, is about living long and about living well. And how to do this. Charak, in another part, says that health is known as happiness, and disease is unhappiness. This is the main theme of my talk this morning about long life, anti-aging from the point of view of Ayurveda, and how from that point of view that our state of mind is central. Our state of mind, our state of heart, the hridaya, the same thing. This is my topic, superaging, a holistic approach to mind-body aging based on principles of Maharishi Ayurveda. Most people associate aging, the passage of time, with a progressive decline in functioning. Our physical functioning, our mental functioning, dementia, loss of memory, Alzheimer's. That is the average form of aging that medical scientists are calling usual aging. However, a small percentage of the population in every country in the world, and actually in every time, has shown patterns that are different from the average. And medical scientists call that successful aging versus usual or average aging. And this is a graphic representation of successful versus usual aging. With usual aging, there's an improvement in physical and mental abilities in the early years of life, levels off in adulthood, and declines sometime after age. Depending on how you count it, 50, 60, or 70, a decline in functioning. However, with this concept of successful aging, that means people are maintaining their functions or even increasing their physical and emotional abilities throughout time. And then when time has come, there's a rapid decline, but there's a plateau or an enhancement. This is the goal of modern field of successful aging in the original goal of the thousands-of-year-old tradition of Ayurveda. This is a modern view of the components of successful aging, what would create that optimization of the aging process. Maslow talked about the hierarchy of needs, and applied to aging, there are basic physical needs. We need to eat, we need to sleep, we need to be safe, stay out of gunshots, stay out of floods and hurricanes. There's a physical needs, a base. Second layer of needs are the psychological needs. We need to have psychological, mental, and emotional well-being in order to flourish. And then the third level described by Maslow is the level of self-actualization, higher states of consciousness, the experience of Atma within and the experience of Brahm throughout. These are the three levels that Maslow talked about in the 1960s and the 1970s. And since that time, the relationship between state of mind and state of body, state of mind and state of aging has been well corroborated by thousands of scientific studies. This illustration summarizes the literature on, in this case, depression or stress or state of mind and physiological correlates of aging. For example, psychological stress increases inflammation, increases free radicals, increases the rate of telomere decline, shortens our telomeres, decreases telomerase, the repair of our DNA, increases stress hormones. So it's no longer a myth now that the mind and body are connected. That's been known for decades in modern medicine. And now the connection between mind and aging has been very well described in modern medicine. I've had a chance to discuss these findings with Ayurvedic experts for the past 30 years, particularly with the greatest Ayurvedic experts identified by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who brought Ayurveda and meditation to the West in about 60 years ago. And it's on the basis of those discussions and studies that I want to now compare with you these Ayurvedic and modern perspectives. I've also had a chance to discuss these findings with Sigmund Freud. Just kidding, perhaps in my dreams, but comparing or integrating the modern and ancient perspectives. The Ayurvedic perspective says that life is a tripod of mind, body, and based on soul or Atma, the inner self. This is the subject of Dr. John Hagelin's talk later on today, how Atma in Ayurvedic terminology has been discovered by modern science as the unified field of all the laws of nature. The main point here that these three dimensions are all necessary for optimum health and optimum aging, because that's the purpose of Ayurveda, long and high quality life. And here's a little more detail showing Sankhya, the development from Atma through mind, through body, through the universe, according to the Vedic literature. There's this field of Atma, or pure consciousness, or the unified field, unbounded, and then begins to manifest as the elements of mind. First ego, I amness, intellect, subtle decision and distinction, mind, the thinking quality. And those are fluctuations, if you will, of our pure consciousness into our specific consciousness. And then that crystallizes into our senses, and then our bodies, all the laws of nature, the whole universe. Now, how is this relevant to aging? Maybe you can guess by now, but I'll describe to you the central cause of aging and the central cause of ill health, according to Ayurveda, is called pragya parad, the ultimate cause of aging. When Charak says that the cause of all disorders, both mental and physical, is pragya aparad. So what is that? This is a representation. In literal translation, pragya aparad means loss of intellect or mistake of the intellect. Maharishi's interpretation of this is more broad and more universal while maintaining that same spirit. And here's the idea. On the bottom of this chart is this unified field of all the laws of nature, which gives rise to our mind, body, and the entire universe. And in Ayurvedic language, the first three major constituents of the universe and our human bodies are these three physiological operators called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, the three doshas. Now, the main point here that these are three doshas, and everybody talks about them. They think of Ayurveda, think, oh, my Vata's out of balance, or my Pitta's getting hot, or my Kapha's getting dull. The point here, though, is that these three arise from one. The one central source of the universe, symmetry breaks, if you will, breaks its own internal symmetry and divides into these three constituents. Now, at this point where the one field, the unified field, becomes a three, is the key point where the universe begins, where the body begins. And if there's some imbalance at this first breaking, this first expression, then that's a loss of memory of one's own inner self, a loss of memory of one's own perfectly balanced self. And that's a loss that results in imbalance in either Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. That's the source of imbalance, the first source and the ultimate source. And this is the loss of connection with one's own inner self, with one's own healing abilities. This is Pragya Parad, and all of Ayurveda has as its purpose to restore this connection of matter with consciousness, of our doshas, our dhatus, whatever level of physiology we're thinking about, our mind and body, with our own inner intelligence. And if we can do that, then we shouldn't wear out, because the unified field doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't wear out, it's always there. Unlike my slides, which are not moving forward.
Doesn't Pragya Aparad mean that soul, body is not listening to the soul? Soul is saying you shouldn't have this thing, but body is still having it. Doesn't that Pragya Aparad mean that?
That can express itself in an intellectual mistake. One can certainly make a decision that's improper. That's one expression of loss of memory. We don't think very clearly when we lose ourselves. At the deepest level, there's this idea that the soul should be always there, so all of our functioning should be in tune with it. Got a little... Yeah. So while we're remembering ourselves here, it froze. I'm going to restart. Okay, well, we're going to restart the computer here. We could take some questions or jokes, depending on your predisposition. Anyone have any good stories? Further comments or questions in our middle zone here? Are the main points? Yes, in the middle? Yes. I'm calling usual aging a disorder. I'm calling a successful aging order. And loss of functioning prematurely, which is the most common and average situation as a disorder. Yes, that's right. Excellent point. Something in the back someone had? Okay. What do we think? I think this computer system has shown signs of aging, but, well, yes, sir.
Just a question about the sequence of the three different parts of the cognitive function. You had manas, or the mind, as the most superficial. Then you had the intellect, buddhi, as the second. And then you had ego, ahamkara, as the subtlest. Usually we see the ahamkara in a different position, where the buddhi, the intellect, is the subtlest.
Yes, just 1 second. Did he? He's working on it. Okay, that's a good question. In this perspective, and as described classically by Sankhya, there's a universal self is the first level, Atma, or the unified field. And that begins to coalesce into something individual. And the first experience of something individual, I am John, or I am Joe, or I exist, or exist in the world, that sense of I amness is said to be ahamkar, or ego. If cosmic ego becomes individual ego, and then that sense of I amness begins to discriminate, and that, I'm different from everything else. I'm different from the universal level. I am something that's unique and distinct. And that's said to be buddhi, fine intellect, and buddhi is also other things, intuition and fine discrimination. But at the fundamental level, I exist and I'm different. And then the third level is, in this view, traditional view of Sankhya, is mind or thinking. Okay, I've got these abilities. I can think, I can calculate, I can emote, I can work with that. I'm not yet a body, but I can figure this out. So that's manas in this particular point of view. And the next stage is I can sense, I can see, I can hear, the indriyas. And then after that, I can move, I can talk, I can digest the body. There may be other points of view, but that certainly is a classical point of view. Any other comments, questions? Sorry, yes. Do I have any new books coming out? Funny you should ask that. I do have one book out currently. It's called Total Heart Health, and it's the Ayurvedic integrative approach to prevention and treatment of heart disease and its risk factors. And then my second book, Super Aging, is in process and should be out in maybe a year and a half, something like that. Yes? This is it. I'm telling you now. Yeah, I'm great. Today I won't get it. I'm only getting to one practical point today, but the new book will have many practical points. But this is the central thesis. The central thesis of aging from the Ayurvedic point of view. Aging is due to loss of self. Loss of memory of oneself is due to pragya-prad. And you can take all the pills you want and all the calorie restriction you want and all the exercise you want and all the yoga asanas you want. I mean, those are all important. I respect all those. But the central thesis is you've got to remember your body's own inner intelligence. And that's the cause of immortality, according to Dr. Sanjay Gupta and Charak. Okay, are we very intelligent there? Well, the last minute, any other? I think we're on the screen.
We are, might have to control it.
Okay, this works. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned
Wow.
something just previously, the idea that Ayurveda involves the eating of grains. And I'm just wondering about your concepts and how you see it to the idea of having a high fat consumption and a low grain consumption or carbohydrate consumption, which is, I'm seeing people heal from many problems of aging by changing their diet for high fat, low grade. I'm just wondering about the perspective on that.
Right. Okay, that's a really good question about diet and the Ayurvedic anti-aging diet. Can we just bookmark that until we get to the end of the talk? But let's definitely remember that point.
How is Maslow's need of hierarchy associated with successful aging?
Well, Maslow said that for total mental health, and then applying that, extending that to total physical health, you need these three levels of fulfillment. Maslow, unlike his contemporaries, who are other psychologists, they would say you just need to be psychologically fulfilled and everything is necessary. Did that guy go away? His physician friends would say, like Freud said, you just need to be mentally happy and everything is fine. And then the physical, medical friends said, all you need is your body. You need to eat, sleep, and have the right food, have the right nutrition, eat the right fat, carbohydrate, protein combination, you'll be fine. And Maslow said, you're both right and you're both wrong. And then the spiritual people said, all you need to do is transcend and you'll be fine. He said, all of you are partially right and partially wrong. His point of view is you need all three. You need to have physical balance, you need to have mental balance, and then you need to have spiritual balance. And that this morning is my correlate with Ayurveda. Ayurveda says life is a tripod, mind, body, environment, and you have any one of those legs of the tripod missing, and you're dead.
But Herzberg had replaced Maslow's
Who replaced it?
Herzberg.
Hertzberg.
Yeah.
Hertzberg. Well, I'd love to talk with you more about Hertzberg. I'm sure it must, I would imagine it fits in with the universal principles of Vedic knowledge. But Maslow is very well known, so I'm using him this morning as a well-known illustration. So are we okay to proceed? They're running around. Let's see. Great. So we talked about Maslow, we talked about mind, how they're physiological correlates. This is not a myth, it's not just theory. And we talked about studying Ayurveda, we talked about conferring with Freud in our free time. We talked about the tripod, ego, intellect, mind, pragya, parad. Right. So now let's get into a little more detail. I know everyone is eager to know about diets and what we can do to apply this knowledge. Now I'd like to go into more details about the Ayurvedic approach to reversing and preventing aging. In Ayurveda, there are 3 levels of treatment for everything: mental health, physical health, and aging health, and everything in between. These 3 levels are, in English, working on the level of the environment, working on the level of the body, and working on the level of the mind. Daiva Vyapasriya is the environment. We just heard about the environment earlier, and we heard how it's so critical for health. Second level is what most people think of as Ayurveda. Most people think of Ayurveda as pills and tablets, go to the health food store, and Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, which is all there, but it's 1/3 of Ayurveda. The third component, which we'll focus more on today, is the mind component, or sattva vijaya. Psychological therapies or mind therapies, often misunderstood, usually misunderstood, and usually ignored. And we'll highlight that. Third, but we don't want to ignore, you need to take care of your mind, you need to take care of your body, and you need to take care of your environment. This is Maslow meets Charak. Okay, this is Greek to me. Actually, this is Greek to me. Sorry about that. Sometimes these fonts get changed around, but in whatever language you're speaking, the concepts are universal, beyond space and time. The point, this is just summarize environment, body, and mind, restoring, linking them, reversing pragya prad, linking them to the body's own inner intelligence, the intelligence of nature. That's the theme today for anti-aging. Zooming in on this area of sattva vijaya, or Ayurvedic psychiatry, Charak describes specialists in mental health called Tat Vidya Seva, the psychiatrists of old, and in this field of mental health, sattva vijaya. And within this field of mental health, the principal author of Ayurveda, Charak, described these psychotherapy, effectively. And in his description of psychotherapy, he says that endowed with these qualities, those who follow these behaviors, these behavioral prescriptions, gain all the fruits of rasayana. Does people know what rasayana means? Some, but not everyone. Rasayana means anti-aging elixir, the elixir of immortality. And maybe it's a pill, and there are pills for rasayana value, and other diets are rasayana. In this case, behaviors are rasayana, anti-aging immortality behaviors. And he said if you follow these behaviors, you'll gain all the results of the anti-aging pill and the diets. This is Ayurvedic psychiatry. So what is these behaviors? What are some of these behaviors? Here Charak says, happiness or misery arise due to contact of the mind and senses with objects. But when the mind is steadily engrossed in the self, a supernatural healing power comes forth in the person. This state is known as yoga. Now, this is not Patanjali. These are not the Yoga Sutras. This is Ayurveda. Remember that book that talks about the doshas and the herbs and all the diets? Here, Ayurveda is saying when you restore pragya parad, when you restore your mind and remember yourself, remember that you are the universe, remember your own inner intelligence, this is a healing state. And that's also called yoga. Yoga is union with one's inner self. Now, the American Heart Association last week said the same thing. How many of you read the Journal of the American Heart Association last week? They came out with their first ever article, first time in 5,000 years. They came out and said meditation may decrease the risk of heart disease. They said the same thing Charak is saying. And I'm going to tell you why they said that. First, a little bit about meditation, and again, Dr. John Hagelin will talk a lot more about Ayurvedic meditation in his award-winning presentation this afternoon. So I'll just spend a minute to say that this traditional form of meditation described in Ayurveda as yoga and by the yogic literature is a process of settling down one's active thinking mind and experiencing the state of silent inner awareness, remembering oneself in today's language that we're talking now, in reversing pragya parad, in remembering that we're this silent, unbounded inner state. And experiencing this state of restfulness, the mind is resting, the body's resting, along with alertness, there are profound physiological effects. Those physiological effects have been very well described, beginning in Los Angeles in 1970. Dr. Keith Wallace, who's with us today, was the first to describe the physiological correlates of this state of yoga. And over the past 40 years, there's been quite an elaboration of that work. And I'm going to share with you some of the latest of that and how it relates to aging and Ayurveda. There have been 12 randomized controlled trials. Now we're talking about modern verification of Ayurvedic prediction that this state of yoga, this state of experiencing of Atma, this meditative state, has effects related to aging. Blood pressure is one of the main correlates of advancing age. If you're 55 years or older, you have a 90% chance of having high blood pressure sometime during your life. Strong correlate of aging. 12 randomized controlled trials have shown significant reductions in blood pressure with this Ayurvedic meditation that in modern times is called transcendental meditation, experiencing your transcendental self. If you look at hypertensive patients, which majority of people over 50 or 60 have, there's even greater reductions just with this meditation on top of any other changes from drugs and lifestyle. The American Heart Association 4 years ago reviewed this work on meditation and high blood pressure and other non-drug treatments, and they concluded that alternative treatments that include the transcendental meditation technique are recommended for consideration in treatment plans for all individuals with high blood pressure. That was a big breakthrough when the American Heart Association said that. Now, what about other forms of meditation? Certainly there are a lot of meditative practices on the market today. My colleagues and I did a comparative study of looking at the published randomized controlled trials, published scientific literature on various forms of relaxation as of several years ago. And we found that muscle relaxation, stress management, biofeedback, and combination therapies were NS. Anybody know what that means? Right, brilliant audience, not statistically significant. So you can say anything you want, there's testimonials, case reports, internet, but when you look at the strong scientific studies, this transcending is the only meditation, at least at the time of this review, that had significant reductions in blood pressure. That's why the American Heart Association, with whom I was not involved for this review, although I was involved in many of the other blood pressure studies with National Institutes of Health support and major collaborators in Southern California and around the world. But the American Heart Association review concluded the transcendental meditation technique is the only meditation practice, including mindfulness-based stress reduction, that has been shown to lower blood pressure. Other techniques either have negative findings or insufficient evidence, insufficient numbers of randomized controlled trials, which is the gold standard criteria to make that same conclusion. This is, the study was done in Athens, Greece. This is a study of telomerase. Telomerase is an enzyme that repairs one's DNA, repairs one's telomeres, which is part of one's DNA. And when you age, your telomerase goes down, your telomeres go down, your DNA falls apart, and then the body dysfunctions. So to maintain your DNA, to maintain your telomeres, you want to have good telomerase. And the right-hand bar shows a trial that we did comparing health education and meditation. Health education before and after 1 year had higher telomerase, so healthy lifestyle contributed to more telomerase and telomeres. But the red bars are transcendental meditation practitioners, so meditation all by itself, in addition to whatever else was their usual care, enhanced telomerase production. So this is mind over DNA, which could be central to the aging process. This is a famous study that we did with NIH support, costs the US government and taxpayers $5 million over 10 years, an important study published in a top medical journal, where we took a group of 200 heart disease patients and we randomly assigned them to practice meditation in group A or a class in education about conventional risk factors, diet, exercise, those kinds of things. And then we followed them for an average of 5.5 years and see who lived and who didn't. I mean, they already had heart disease. And they were all taking their usual medication. So they're all getting standard care plus meditation 20 minutes twice a day, or plus this class. The blue bar shows the meditation group and their rate of death, heart attack, and stroke over 5 years. And as you can see by the bar, there was a 48% reduction in rate of death, heart attack, and stroke in the meditation group, almost half. Now, is that reversal of aging or what? They lived longer and they stayed out of the hospital just by adding the experience of their own inner self to their daily experience. Now, the American Heart Association said more than risk. But what I will do, I will tell you what they said. Fortunately, I've memorized that. So what happened last week is that the AHA got together a committee. Actually, they got together a committee about a year ago. And they said, look, all of our patients are asking us about meditation. We hear about this big conference at Loyola Marymount in Los Angeles on meditation and yoga. And what's it all about? Does this have any value? We know that the AHA reviewed blood pressure about 4 years ago, and we know what they said, and I've showed that to you. But what about heart disease more generally? What about preventing heart attacks and strokes, which is the #1 cause of death in the United States and the world today? Does meditation have any value? So they pulled together 10, 15 experts. They reviewed all the published literature. A lot of that literature on heart disease and meditation was work on transcendental meditation. They also reviewed literature on other meditation techniques. And they concluded that meditation may be useful. They are very conservative, these doctors. But it was a big thing, first time in 5,000 years. So I said, may be useful. Before that, they weren't even saying anything like, zip, meditation, go talk to your yoga teacher. But here are the cardiologists, and then I was just presenting this last week at UCLA, this big breakthrough. Everybody was so astonished that now doctors are recommending to other doctors, and they're recommending to the general public that yes, you should take all your drugs, and yes, you should follow our other guidelines. You should eat a low-fat diet, which is my personal moderate fat diet, let's say. They're low, I'm moderate. You should do all those things, but if you meditate, and this transcendental meditation is a particularly strong and effective form of meditation, you have a reasonable chance of living longer and healthier. So there you are, Ayurveda and yoga in daily life. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schneider. Apologies for all the technical difficulties, but the findings are amazing, and that definitely came across that meditation helps our mind, body, and spirit. Thank you so much.
Teach the meditation. Yes, well, we could have a course on meditation. This particular meditation takes about 8 hours to learn, 5 days, and an hour and a half a day. Everyone has had the experience at some time of experiencing inner silence, but it's a way to experience that regularly and systematically. But I think with the help of our organizers, we could certainly have a course here for anyone who wants. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir. Back to the high-fat, low-fat diet. Okay.
Well, I'm getting reports from various people in the medical field about great success, particularly for brain problems in regard to having a higher fat diet, and that Ansel Keys' original research was fabricated largely to show the low fat diet was needed in Western society.
Right, okay, so the topic of fat's a big point. I mean, the main point of today is that you can lubricate your internal machinery by meditating, but if you want to lubricate your internal machinery through diet, then that's important too. Ayurveda is moderation in fats. There are good fats and bad fats in modern medicine, and ghee and coconut oil considered good fats now in the latest discoveries. So I would say that that Ayurveda is more in the moderate fat category, but you want to have more plant-based diet with moderate fat is the main idea.
So the other side of that is that a reduction in grains, necessary carbohydrates at the same time. I don't know whether it was grain.
Yeah. Right. There's a new study, I mean, it's trying to be brief here. There's a new study on good vegan diets and bad vegan diets. You know, there's a lot of literature now on plant-based diets, or in the direction of plant-based diets, people live longer. But however, within plant-based diet, there are more inflammatory foods and then more healthy foods. So highly refined grains, the latest literature shows associated with shorter life. So refined grains, refined sugars, even though they're plant-based, even though they're vegetarian, eating all that ice cream, hey, it's vegetarian. But in moderation, more whole grains, whole foods, whole proteins, vegetables, fruits, that's more the Ayurvedic direction. And consistent with modern science.
Medical science have accepted that by meditation and
1 minute, may I give you this?
medical science has accepted that by doing yoga and meditation, the T helper cells rise from 2 to 8.
The T lymphocytes?
T helper cells.
Sure, right.
They
There are
rise from
definitely
2 to
effects on the
8.
immune system. Agreed. Yes, someone else? Did I miss someone? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. All right, well, then I think we have to move on to the next talk. Pleasure being with you here today at Loyola.